This is a CBS News special report. I'm John Dickerson. President Trump's former national security advisor, John Bolton, has just been indicted. Back in August, the FBI conducted court-authorized searches at Bolton's Maryland home and D.C. office. Sources then told CBS News the investigation was centered on whether Bolton mishandled classified documents. Bolton left the Trump administration after 17 months amid disagreement about Middle East policy. In 2020, Bolton wrote a book titled The Room Where It Happened about his tenure in the White House, and it was very critical of President Trump. The first Trump administration tried to stop the publication of that book and looked into whether Bolton had published classified information. Bolton is the third Trump critic to be indicted in recent months, following former FBI Director James Comey and New York Attorney General Letitia James. Let's bring in Justice Department correspondent Scott McFarland. Scott, what do we know about this indictment?
Three sources familiar with the matter tell CBS News John Bolton was indicted by a grand jury in Greenbelt, Maryland, a few minutes ago. Greenbelt, Maryland is the district court where John Bolton lives nearest. The indictment comes 2 months after John Bolton's Maryland home was raided by federal agents, and his Washington, D.C. office was raided by federal agents. The sources speaking with CBS News don't yet have a specific charge in this case, but there is a case number now assigned. A source tells CBS News John Bolton, the former national security advisor, one of the most powerful advisors in the United States government, is now a criminal defendant in case 25-CR-314 in the U.S. District Court for Maryland. Prosecutors were in front of a grand jury on the East Coast from 1:30 to about 4 today, making a presentation, and shortly after the prosecutors wrapped up, the grand jury returned an indictment to the judge. At this moment, that indictment is sealed, but the sources speaking with CBS News say the indictment is, in fact, John Bolton. If you'll recall, John, when that search of John Bolton's home in Maryland and his office in D.C. was executed, the feds seized some things. They took phones, computer devices, and a series of records with markings that said confidential, classified, and secret. CBS News reported at the time that after those items were seized, that this was an investigation into the potential mishandling of classified, confidential government records. What records? That certainly has not been specified due to the nature of them being classified. But John Bolton, through his attorney, has consistently, unambiguously denied any wrongdoing in this case. But he is now a criminal defendant. We expect to hear the specific charges, the federal felonies, in the coming minutes, if not the coming hours.
So, Scott, there's been a lot of history about lawmakers who've taken documents home, and maybe we don't have to review the whole history, but there has been a former national security advisor, Sandy Berger, who was also charged for taking classified documents out of the White House. Of course, we had the situation with former President Trump, now, of course, President Trump, and then, of course, former President Biden. In these cases, is it the severity of the documents, in other words, the level of security of those documents, and then, I guess, intent? Would those be at least two of the things we might think that would be most important here?
That second component is critical. Was there a criminal intent in possessing documents unlawfully or obstructing the attempt to retrieve those documents? You'll recall in the Trump case in Fort Pierce, Florida, at Mar-a-Lago, there was an allegation he obstructed a very prolonged effort to get records back from him. So that was partly an obstruction case. You'll recall also, John, that was dismissed in July 2024 by a federal judge appointed by then President Trump, or then former President Trump, that the special counsel investigating it was unlawfully appointed. But none of that applies here. This is a Department of Justice case. And, John, the prosecutor in the room was not one of those Trump political appointees, but a career national security prosecutor who's been there some time.
Yes, a key and important point. Let's turn now to Chief White House correspondent Nancy Cordes. Nancy, your reaction to this?
Well, President Trump himself has just weighed in. He was asked by a reporter in the Oval Office a few moments ago, John, what he thinks about this indictment. The president said he wasn't aware of it, but that he thinks that John Bolton is a bad guy and that this is what happens? Trump has been railing against Bolton for years because he views Bolton primarily as disloyal. Bolton was his national security advisor, a key role in Trump's first administration, and he was basically as close to him as Marco Rubio is now, who is in the same job, though he also serves as Secretary of State. But Bolton and Trump disagreed on a number of foreign policy issues, Russia in particular. And after Bolton left, he was critical of Trump, and Trump gave it right back to him, has railed against Bolton in social media and in public for years, and said a couple of weeks ago on True Social that he hoped that this would happen.
Nancy Cordes at the White House. Thank you. Former federal prosecutor Scott Frederickson joins us now. Scott, your reaction to this and what you think the challenge would be for prosecutors when it comes to having classified documents at home where you're not supposed to?
Well, my reaction is no surprise at all. We certainly have seen reports coming after the search of his home and office in August of this year, and the return of the affidavit in court that was partially unredacted that indicates he was in possession of classified documents. There's classified documents that are classified documents. His defense attorney has said, look, these documents date back to 20 years, and most of these were approved. There seems to be three buckets the government was investigating. One is, did he possess classified documents that they found at his home and his office? Two, going back to his time in the first Trump administration, he wrote a book. There was a big dispute about whether he was using classified information. The Justice Department opened a criminal investigation, but that was closed, but not with prejudice. So that may have been reopened. And then the third bucket is there are reports that a foreign adversary had hacked Mr. Bolton's AOL.com email address, from which they apparently or maybe allegedly obtained classified information. That'd be a case of mishandling classified information.
Fascinating. Okay, Scott, thanks very much. Let's go back to Scott McFarlane. Scott, what do you know? We've learned more about the indictment.
We have a 26-page indictment just released, just unsealed. 8 charges here, 8 counts of the charge: transmission of national defense information and retention of national defense information. They're citing documents that he's accused of transmitting between September 2018 and, as I go to the bottom of this charging document, September 2019, over a 12-month period. John, they've assigned a judge to this case, Theodore Chung, in Greenbelt, Maryland, just outside of Washington. Chung is a 2013 appointee of then-President Obama.
Okay, Scott McFarlane, thank you so much for that. Once again, President Trump's former national security advisor, John Bolton, has been indicted on 8 counts over his handling of national defense information. Our coverage will continue on CBS News 24/7, your local news, and tonight on the CBS Evening News. This has been a CBS News special report. I'm John Dickerson.